So here's the tension, as Kylie would say. Depending on who you listen to, the economy is strong. Consumers are spending. Corporations are profitable. The stock market has had major runs.
But the Dow.
And yet, millions, tens of millions, and actually maybe even hundreds of millions of Americans feel financially exhausted because everything is so expensive. Gas, groceries, healthcare, everything. So why did Americans become so vulnerable to rising prices in the first place?
Hello, Rainbow people.
I'm David.
And I'm John. And today on Queer Money, brought to you by Optimize Investment Partners, Portugal Golden Opportunities Fund, we're talking about why wages not keeping up is the biggest problem in today's economy. And this matters for gay people thinking about retirement, because if your paycheck is your only wealth building tool, and that paycheck keeps falling behind, it becomes harder to save, harder to invest, harder to pay off debt, harder to retire early, harder to retire abroad, just plain harder to retire at all. So here's the thing. Parts of the economy are doing well, but the economy overall, especially for workers, is not
The
doing
plebeians.
so, right? Yeah, exactly. Those of us who have to earn a paycheck to pay for our bills, that's where life is getting hard. The current economy is giving workers a raise, and we've seen that in some of the data that's come out recently, but everything else is getting much more expensive, much more quickly than our wages are going up. In May, inflation rose 4.2% year over year, and that is drastically far away. I mean, that is dangerously far away from the Fed's 2% target, right?
Double.
So mortgage and other loans aren't going to go down anytime soon. Energy was up 23.5% year over year, and gasoline was up 40.5% year over year. And a lot of that has to do with Trump's tariffs and his illegal Iran war. And those expenses alone affect so much of our everyday lives.
Right. Yeah. And interestingly, if we're looking at this chart, and you did point out that gasoline prices are higher, energy prices are higher, but when you look at fuel prices, gasoline, electricity, all of that is tied to energy prices being higher. So all of that is filtering into the economy, but it takes a while for it to filter into things like grocery prices. It takes a while for it to filter into things like fertilizer prices. All the things that rely on energy are going to eventually have to go up in price to cover that. So you see the data here, and it says grocery prices are only up 2.7%. Restaurant prices are only up 3.5% compared to the 4.2. We're like, yay, it's not as much, but it's coming.
It's coming. Yeah. Yeah. I think ever since the pandemic, we've been learning a lot about supply chains and inputs and outputs and how they affect our everyday life. But if gasoline is going up, especially diesel, which has gone up even more so than regular gas, everything you get delivered to you, anything that's delivered to your town because it's not grown or made there, everything that gets delivered to your house because we don't make anything at home, right? Everything you get from Amazon, everything you get shipped from Costco or Target or whatever, those are all that stuff is getting more expensive. And that doesn't even necessarily include the increase of the products because all of their inputs have gone up, even if you just went to get that stuff at the store. So your paycheck, there's a good chance that your paycheck has gone up. The thing is, though, that everything in your budget has also gone up, exponentially more expensive. And this is exactly what we saw with wages in the most recent report as of the time of this recording. Average hourly earnings rose $37.53 in May.
$2.37. That'd be great if they grew by $37.
It grew to $37.53.
I think it was a 12-cent increase.
Yeah. But that was up 3.4% from the year earlier. But if wages are up 3.4% and prices are up 4.2%, workers are earning more dollars, yes, but those dollars are buying a whole lot less. It's doing a whole lot less work for us. And so what are people defaulting to? Credit card spending has gone exponentially. We've got douche canoe Kevin Hassett, whose people are spending on their credit card. That's exciting. It's not exciting.
I think that's the thing. When you think about that gap between 4.4% and 4.2%, it's only 0.8% on an annualized basis, right? But if you have a household that is basically spending $100,000 a year, and that's very reasonable for a household to spend $100,000 if you're a couple or maybe you have one kid, if you have expenses of $100,000 and your expenses outgrow your income by $800, that's that 0.8%. Where does that money come from? And people are putting it on their credit cards. And this has been happening year after year after year. This is the part of the reason why credit card balances are at over $1.3 trillion, eclipsing what car loans are at. And so it's consumers are spending, but they're not spending confidently. They're spending because they have to. I think it's their
survival mode.
They're in survival mode, exactly.
And calling that optimism is like watching someone bail water out of a sinking boat and say, look at how enthusiastic that person is about boating.
All right, so the thing to remember here is this isn't just an inflation problem. This didn't start in 2026 with inflation. This didn't start in 2022 with inflation. This is actually a 50-year in the making problem.
It started before many people watching or listening to this podcast were born.
Or old enough to understand what most of these words mean, right? Since the mid-1970s, America has gotten fabulously wealthier, much richer. Productivity in this country increased dramatically. If you're looking at this chart here and you look at this red line, it shows how dramatically productivity has increased in the United States. But what about wages?
Look at that sad little flat line. Yeah, if you were in the hospital and that came up on your heart rate machine,
right?
They have to give you the chunk.
Right. So there's been this huge divergence between productivity and wages in the United States. And so that means that other parts of the economy have just really grown dramatically. We know that corporate profits have grown significantly. This next chart shows really here where the profits or where the money is really going. When you see how dramatically, especially since 2000, the growth has happened with corporate profits, but not with employee compensation. The money isn't flowing to people, it's actually flowing to the corporations and the individuals. And we know the individuals who are getting that money are the executives, right? The individuals who own the stocks, the shareholders, all of them are getting more and more and more. But your typical worker, their value did not, or their compensation did not keep up with the value that they have helped
Even
create.
Though if you think about it, if every one of us thinks about, do I work hard? Do I put in a lot of effort? Should I earn a fair and living wage? Almost everybody, I think, would say that.
Yeah.
But they're simply not getting that.
No. And I think that's one of the interesting things is if you look at long term, you look over this 50-year time period, workers' purchasing power has only increased about 10%, which that basically means that since the 1970s until today, we have about 10% more power in what we can buy. Whereas we look at things like home prices have gone up exponentially. Tuition for college up exponentially. Car prices up exponentially. Everything has gone up. All of the necessities, all the things that we need to have a good quality of life, those have gone up exponentially. They have not kept up with this 10% purchasing power increase for us. And I think this is the underlying reason why a lot of us are talking about affordability. The lack of affordability in the country is all tied to the fact that our purchasing power has not increased as dramatically as many of the necessities have.
Right. And this will go back to this from the very beginning. This is a wage problem. And this is the part that we want you to sit with. The money didn't just disappear. It went to executive compensation. It went to stock buybacks. It went to dividends. It went to higher profit margins.
Grab that dough. I think that's what the picture I have in my head is that these are these greedy corporate leaders or shareholders and a lot of them are institutional fund managers who just are the ones who control what the boards do and say and who they elect to the boards of these various companies. They are in that machine just grabbing that dough like Dorothy was trying to,
right?
Making sure that nobody else has any.
Well, let's dive into that more specifically. If you look at CEO pay in the late 1970s, and major corporations and CEOs earned about 31 times that of the typical worker. Just 31 times. And when you think about that seems, okay, I can get that. I feel like
that seems
the risk and the amount of effort and all the time the CEO puts into their career and the challenges that they face,
The fact that they're on their BlackBerry 24/7.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're a CEO, you're working 24/7. You don't necessarily have weekends. You don't have 8-hour shifts. But by 2020, they made 351 times what the average worker was making. There is no way that they are adding 351 times more value than the average worker. I mean, who was the Ford CEO? When she was asked this question a couple of years ago, I think it was on CNBC, the CNBC interviewer asked, are you adding 300 times, 400 times more than your average worker? And she completely bombed at answering that question.
Yes, she did.
But by comparison, per American entrepreneur and venture capitalist Dan Henauer, we listened to him on a recent podcast, and he says that had the economy continued to distribute gains as it did before the mid-1970s, the average worker earning about $60,000 today a year should be earning about $120,000 rather than the $60,000. So think about that. Correlate that to your own salary. How much better would your life be if you were getting paid essentially twice as what you're getting paid now?
And I think that, to me, I feel like this is corporations and corporate leaders are literally killing the golden goose, because 70% of our economy is driven by consumer spending. And if you continue to squeeze the consumer, what are they going to do? They're not going to have money to spend on the things that all of these corporations are trying to create. That's why people switch between streaming services every couple of months, because they can't afford to have all of them. It's the reason why people drive are now, I think the average car on the road is now 13 years old. This is the reason we're literally seeing this happen, because prices have increased so much, because corporations just keep needing more and more profit.
The banks want you to put more and more of your living expenses and your necessities on credit cards. And then they can continue to charge astronomical rates. And arguably, this is why Trump wants interest rates lowered, so that there's more breathing room for the consumer, but not to make you make traction in your personal finances.
Paying off your debt.
Just so you feel comfortable putting more on your credit cards.
Right.
And the conspiracy theorists and me thinks that's the whole point. So you own nothing, and you can never actually stop working. You can never actually retire. You can never actually have a decent quality of life, because you're always trying to pay off some debt that you have, or continue to pay that subscription fee for that service that you don't actually really even use that much. So how did wages essentially fall behind? Well, it started happening during the Nixon administration, but if you really want to pinpoint it to a particular person or two, it is Ronald Reagan and his adoption of Milton Friedman's School of Economics.
And I also think I'll add, it also is George Bush and the tax cuts from 2000.
Well, every president, especially Republican president since then, has exacerbated the problem that Reagan planted the seed for. And if you haven't read this book, it's an amazing book by Ruchir Sharma, What Went Wrong with Capitalism. It talks a lot about how we got to this particular point, but basically we went from a worker economy, one that was designed to make everybody's quality of life better, and we shifted to the investor economy. We shifted it to the shareholder economy. So everything was all about the stock market. That's why they're all proud about how great the stock market is doing. And yes, the stock market is doing great, but if you don't own stocks, you're not necessarily benefiting from that. But since the 1980s specifically, workers lost bargaining power while capital gained more power. Union power declined, which meant fewer workers had the leverage to demand better wages, better benefits, better schedules, pensions, and worker conditions.
I think that was why Trump and Elon Musk had that whole conversation on X, and they were laughing about how they happily want to get rid of unions because they don't want employees to have any control or say over what happens in a company.
Yeah, they don't want any collective bargaining power. So it became a shareholder-first economy, which is not exactly how the economy was initially designed.
Or capitalism was designed. It was not designed that way.
It was not designed this way. That's why we don't necessarily agree that we're living in a capitalist system. Even I know that the popular term right now is that we're at late-stage capitalism. The capitalism died. We're no longer there. We're more of a... At once upon a time, I would have said we were a plutocracy. Now I think we're definitely under a technocracy, where we're being ruled by tech leaders and overlords. And that's exactly who Trump is working with everything he's doing. He's working with all these tech overlords and all their crypto investments. But corporations, their margins have gotten wider. Stock prices have gone up. They've increased their stock buybacks. They've issued better dividends, and executive pay has, as we just discussed earlier, has grown exponentially.
And they've constantly sought out cheaper labor at the cost of
Yeah.
current labor, right? Globalization happened, and one of the major shifts that happened was in 2000 when China entered the World Trade Organization, and American companies gleefully started pushing all of their labor intensive processes over to China, where there were no rules on how old somebody had to be to work, how many hours they had to be work, what kind of chemicals were in the air and when they were at work. All of that kind of stuff was just pushed over there to make it super cheap, and the rest of American workers were just left holding the bag. And I think that it's not just that. We look at the technology shift and how the economy has shifted away from a manufacturing economy to an information economy.
But that's only exacerbating now with AI.
Right.
Or at least that's the dream right now.
Right. And all of these things have been really undermining the ability for workers to say or demand higher wages. I think that was part of the problem that a lot of people had, a lot of corporations had with 2021 and 2022, is because all of a sudden employees did have bargaining power, and employees were demanding better wages, better working conditions. And
right, because everybody started to get some paychecks from the government. People had a little bit of breathing room. There was a historic amount of debt that was paid off during that time, during the pandemic. So suddenly, see what happens when the workers have just a little bit of breathing room, and suddenly they start executing it. And what were they calling it? That was called the Great Quit, right?
Great Resignation.
The Great Resignation.
Yeah.
So people suddenly they had a little bit of breathing room, and they felt they had autonomy over their lives and their careers, and so they were, I'm gonna quit this job and go find a better one.
Yeah. I'm gonna share this. I just learned something about the grain amaranth. Amaranth is a grain that has nearly 100% of all of the amino acids and protein that you need. You can survive pretty much on amaranth by itself. And during a stretch of history, there were kings who knew that this grain could basically feed their populations, and they intentionally scorched the earth. They destroyed this grain because they wanted their population to be weak, because it was easier to control their weak populations. This is actually what we feel is almost what's happening with the economy today, is that certain people want us all to be weak, lack of control, so that we are easy to, in a sense, control.
Yeah, and our tax policy totally favors investment income over labor or earned income due to George Bush's Jobs and Growth Tax Relief Reconciliation Act from 2003.
And I think that this is the funny thing, is that it's not funny. It's a slap in the face that they wrap these tax laws in these labels, jobs and growth tax relief reconciliation, right? They're saying this is about growth. This is about jobs. Everybody's going to benefit from this. But the reality is that what really happened here was that corporations got a massive tax break. And what did they were supposed to allegedly use that tax break to turn around and hire people, do more research and development, and grow the economy for everyone. But instead, that money went to shareholder distributions. It went to share buybacks. It went to make those at the top wealthier.
This is why we don't talk about trickle-down economics anymore. We don't see those red hats as much as we used to see.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. We don't hear the term trickle-down economics anymore.
I mean, as a joke.
No, the Republicans have ditched that term.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why we always say that your primary job when you're in school, whether you graduate and get a job after high school, or you graduate and go to college and then get a job, your primary job is to get the best job you can. After that, your primary job, once you get the best job you can, is to start acquiring assets, because we live in an asset-based economy. That it is not designed to reward you for your actual physical labor. And then in addition to all that, other policies that have changed, I think many of them precipitated by Ronald Reagan as well, was you don't get, the reason why your grandfather could go to college for $300 a year was because he was given a grant from the federal government. Well, they turned that grant system into a loan system. It's a banking system. So again, you have this indentured servitude because you're mired by this credit card or by this student loan debt, as many people are experiencing right now. Likewise, we've shifted the responsibility of saving for retirement onto the worker. Even the 401k, as successful as it's been, was not designed to be the sole vehicle for workers' retirement security. It was supposed to complement pensions and Social Security.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to be like the primary source of retirement security.
Right. It was a three-legged stool. You know that a three-legged stool cannot be tipped over, right? And that was the whole idea, is if you had this three-legged stool, the vast majority of Americans would be strong and confident in their retirement.
Yeah. Imagine if you had a 401k or a 403b, 457, you had pension coming from your corporation, and you had Social Security. At this point, we might not even have Social Security. We don't have pension, so now we're suddenly completely reliant on ourselves in the 401k.
So I think I want to back up for just a second. We said, folks, that we want your job after you get a job is to start acquiring assets. And we don't say that because we want you to be a part of or help grow the system, right? The reality is that you are, no matter what, no matter who you are, you're a human and you are in this system. You cannot escape this system. Even if you go off grid and live in a cave somewhere, you still are essentially a part of this system, because you're going to have to come out and get food and sustenance somehow, right? But the truth is that this system really does benefit people who own assets. And so what we want for you is to be a little stable so that you can make better choices, rather than being the person who is the worker, is the renter, is the debtor, is the person who is constantly relying on that paycheck, the one who isn't able to save, the one who doesn't have any assets as assets increase in value. The problem is that so many LGBTQ folks are in that group of people. We are so reliant just on our paychecks. So we want you to start thinking about, how do you grow your assets, especially when it comes to real estate, when it comes to a business, and it comes to owning some sort of value in stocks.
Yeah, because at some point you can't budget any harder. You can't save anymore, because save more from what? There's literally nothing. Inflation has pretty much eaten up everything. Healthcare costs, rent, everything has eaten up whatever wage growth you've had. So you can't save anymore.
Right. And you can't just say, stop drinking lattes, or blame it on you bought too many lattes. The problem is your paychecks aren't keeping up. It's not that you decide you need to have a cup of coffee once in a while. It's that your paychecks aren't keeping up.
So what do we do with all this? The obligatory first step is to say yes. Fight for a fair system. Vote. Support unions. Support fair wages. This is part of why we're excited to see what the young democratic socialists are doing, who are winning races across the country. Support healthcare reform. Support housing policies. And hold corporations accountable to their bullshit. Don't buy it. Whether you work for that corporation or whether you're a patron of that corporation, when they're acting nefariously, call them out or boycott them. Whatever it is you can do.
And remember, it's not just about saying, okay, I'm going to stop shopping at Target and now I'm going to switch over to buying stuff at Kohl's. Think strategically about what you're doing when you're boycotting. How do you use that money that you are no longer spending at Target, or no longer investing at Schwab, or no longer riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle, or all of those places that you've decided that you're no longer going to patronize? How do you take some of that money and actually turn it into something that's powerful for you? So this is the thing, is that no matter what we want to believe or say, we still live in a world where money is power, right? Our money gives us power of choice. Our money gives us power of control. And so that's what we want you to do while you're fighting for this better system. Think about, how do you not only protect, but empower yourself? You can do that by investing in companies that are good companies. Look for those ESG index funds, those companies that are standing up for the right kinds of things, like the environment, social justice, all those kinds of things. Then also use your money for saving for a better future. Be responsible when it comes to how you're using your money. Are you acquiring assets? Buying real estate is one of the best ways that you can start to acquire a stronghold in your life, so that your rents are going to continue to go up by 3%, 4%, 5% throughout your life. But when you buy a home, your mortgage stays the same for 30 years, as long as you don't keep on refinancing it.
Right. And there are ways to scale into real estate.
Right. Yeah. So figure out ways to take more control for yourself. Maybe that means moving to a lower cost city, ditching the debt, become more aware of how your money can better empower your life.
Yeah, build a small business, create a consulting firm. There's myriad options to become an asset owner. And if you're looking for a way to retire abroad, Optimize built the Portugal Golden Opportunities Fund for more than returns. They built it for freedom. Freedom to move about Europe, retire fabulously abroad, and include your entire family. It's EU regulated, IRA friendly, and EU passport worthy in about 10 years or so. Hopefully that doesn't change again. Get the details through the link in the video description. So here's the thing. The goal is to move, if even slowly, from earning income alone to owning income producing assets. That's your goal. We can get mad about the game and still learn how to play it for our own survival.
So here's what we want you to remember. The problem isn't you. The problem is an economy that has rewarded capital over labor for decades, and you're feeling it right now. And if this system keeps rewarding ownership, then one of the most powerful things that you can do is to start becoming an owner in whatever way you can, whatever small way you can. Because the goal is not to just survive an unfair economy. It's to build enough options that the economy has less control over you.
And if you're looking for more videos on how to retire early, retire abroad, or simply retire better, we've curated this playful playlist for you right here. Start there next, because the sooner you understand how the game is being played, the sooner you can start building a financial life that gives you more options, more freedom, and a lot less panic. And until next time, retire by design,
Not by default.